is this one bit of hair doing? Oh well. Hi guys, and welcome back to the Emily Knits channel. My name is Emily. I'm a knitter and crocheter in my mid-30s, based in the north of Nottinghamshire in the UK, where I live with my husband and our 2 dogs, one of whom is becoming my regular co-host, close to Sherwood Forest. Thank you for being here with me today. We have a traditional format podcast for you today. It was a lovely summery, springy weekend over the weekend in the UK, but today, Monday morning, I'm looking out to a very grey, cold day, so typical UK weather. So grab a drink. I have a biscuit brew, again, from Yorkshire Tea. Grab a drink, grab something to work on, grab a furry companion if you have one. And we'll get into it without much further ado. Before I get into it proper, where can you find me? You can find me on, all of these will be down below. You can find me on Instagram as @Emily_knits_. You can find me on email at emilyknitspodcast@gmail.com. You can find me on Ravelry as EmilyKnits36. I don't often update that, although I have been a little bit better recently because I've done a few test knits, so I've put the test knits on there. I do have a wish list on Ravelry if you want to buy me a pattern, that is on there. And you can also find me on Ko-fi as Emily Knits if you wanted to support the channel that way. Is that everything I needed? No, there is a couple of small updates at the top of the podcast as well. It's extremely hot, but very good. What was I going to say? Mals. So we're still running Leah of Leah Amber Knits and I are still running the Get Ahead Mal. That is any spring or summer knits of fibres, and that is running until, we said, the end of March. I think we might extend it past that. I've had a couple of entries for that already. Thank you very much for that. This is my entry for that. We're going to talk about that. There is also the Emily Knits Stash Down Make Along that I am running myself. This runs all year long. This runs right till the end of the year. And I think I'm actually going to draw the first couple of prizes towards the end of March, because in my head, having a little bit of a I like process and I'm quite an organised person. So in my head, it makes sense to have a prize or prizes at the end of each quarter of the year. So obviously at the end of March, we're coming to the end of the first quarter of the year. The make along hasn't been running for a full quarter, but I'm running it as a yearly mal. So yeah, that makes sense in my head. So if you are wanting to enter into that, there are a few different ways you can do it. You can enter on Instagram. Please make sure you tag me, as well as use the hashtag hashdown. That's a new one. Yeah, please make sure you tag me, as well as using the hashtag that I'll put down below. I literally said hashdown again. Just so I can definitely make sure I can see it. If you don't want to post it publicly, you can either message me on Instagram or send me an email to the email down below. Again, I know a couple of you have done that. If you don't want to post that publicly, that's fine. There is also a Discord, which I'll put the link to down below. There is a finished objects thread in there, and there is a social chatter thread, and it's really, really lovely. So if you want to come and join that and be part of that, please feel free. There's no obligation. You don't have to be in that to join. But if you want to, that is an option as well. So, without further ado, I have a few things to talk to you about today. I've got 2 finished objects. I've got progress on a couple of whips, one of which you've seen, one of which you haven't. I think that's really it today. There's a couple of other whips that you've seen that I haven't been working on much this week. But we will get into it, and we'll start talking about what I'm wearing, which is my first finished object. So I have finished my Pillars of Simplicitee by Claire Jackson, who is perfectly knotted on Instagram. Her Ravelry and designer name is Claire Jackson. This is a DK weight top-down raglan V-neck tee, with the whole thing being these big deep rib sections, 2x2 rib here and here. Let me see if I can hop up a bit and you can see it a bit better. That's really good actually, isn't it? So this is, like I say, top-down raglan. You can see here the raglan shaping. You start at the back. In fact, I think you cast on right round to the shoulders. You cast on enough stitches for the shoulder to the shoulder all around the back, and then you essentially start increasing to increase here and on your raglans at the back, and you keep working until the point at which you join for the sleeves, and then just after that you join for the V. I think it's that way around. Might be the other way around. I think you might join for the V and then join for the sleeves, and then essentially you work the body straight with the ribbing to give it a bit of shaping. There is an option in the pattern for waist shaping as well if you wanted to do that. And then you do your sleeves, which are basically you pick up from where you are and you do the rib. There isn't, you can sort of see there at the underarm. There isn't really any stocking out, you just go straight into the rib. You could if you wanted to lengthen it. And the raglans are done from one stitch basically, which gives it this sort of quite interesting raglan look. And then you, well, optionally you add a crochet slip stitch trim, which I have, and then you're done. So I knit the size 44 inches, which should have given me a little bit of negative ease, but I'm not getting that, I'm getting a bit of positive ease. Weirdly with blocking, I found that this has sort of grown outwards and shrunk upwards more, so this should have been a little bit longer. I don't know if you can see that it's a little bit short, I think, but I'm going to see how I go wearing it, because I do find that plant fibres sometimes grow a little bit with wear, or they loosen a bit with wear, so I'm hoping that will be the case with this one. Let me sit back down. So if you've been here before, you will have heard me have a little bit of a rant about this pattern, particularly the beginning bits of it. And I was speaking to somebody else on Instagram who said they'd had exactly the same experience with actually another one of Claire's patterns. So particularly this one, because it's called the Pillars of Simplicitee, I thought this was supposed to be a bit of a simple pattern. These increases were really challenging. It wasn't the way that you're doing it, although they were lifted increases, and I'm used to make one lefts and make one rights. That was just a technique I'm not as used to. And that's fine, that does happen. But the main thing was that the rates were so challenging. So for every size, there is, I think in the pattern there's like 11 different increase rows you can be doing at any point during this increase. And for every size there is a different rate and there is different rows that you need to be doing. And I think for my size, I think I used 7 or 8 of those different rows at different points in this. So it isn't just like for size 6, do row F and do that all the way through. It changes constantly, and you're doing different ones at different points on it as well, which meant that I had to really pay attention. I found it really quite challenging, and I consider myself a fairly confident knitter. I'm very good at just throwing myself in and making it work, basically. I'm not particularly fazed by stuff. I found this challenging and it nearly went in the bin, I'll be honest, during the raglans. I was just it wasn't what I wanted from looking at what it looks like. And again, this might just be my impression from the pattern, from the name. I expected something quite easy breezy, just going to breeze through a raglan and it's going to be lovely. No, it wasn't. Once I had got to the point where I joined and everything, then it's just stocking it and then you're doing some 2x2 rib, and it was really simple. But yeah, those raglans, just don't go into it expecting it to be simple. I would not say it's beginner friendly for that alone. I really wouldn't say it's beginner friendly. And yeah, somebody else had said that they'd had the same thing with one of her other patterns. So maybe just her writing style is a little bit more not beginner friendly. I would say really you need to be confident beginner to intermediate to handle these really varied increase rates. So yeah, that's just one thing to note. Overall though, really love the pattern. I think it's really, really flattering on me. I'm really happy with the yarn I chose, which was the yarn I had in stash, and we'll touch on in a minute, but I really, really like how this looks. I have a couple of criticisms. I don't know if you'll be able to see. I bet you're not going to be able to see. It's rolling a little bit at the back, and on the back it's rolling outwards. And then you can sort of see here, it is rolling in. So this isn't the neckline it's supposed to have because it's rolling inwards, and this is despite blocking it and pinning it. I pinned it and I did the crochet neckline twice. First off with a 5mm hook, no 4.5. Yeah, first off with a 4.5mm hook, which was the same as the needle size that I was using, and that's what she recommends you do. Second time I did it with a half size smaller, so a 4mm hook to try and stop it, but it is still very definitely rolling, and thankfully it doesn't look bad. Because at least at this bit here, which is where it was rolling really badly before, that is now flat thanks to the crochet chain. It's just a slip stitch edging basically. But yeah, that's the only things. So yeah, really happy with it except for the rolling edges. She actually said in the pattern that she didn't do any trimming on it because she didn't find that she needed to, but she gives options for a knitted and a crocheted one. And yeah, this really rolls for me. I don't know if this is me or my yarn choice or what, but it does, it definitely rolls. But overall, yeah, I'm really pleased with this. I'm really pleased with how it looks. It's really nice to wear as well. And I think part of that is the yarn, which I've promptly lost. Oh, I'm sat on it, that's why. So this is the yarn that I used. This was unfortunately this is discontinued, and I wish it wasn't because it's been lovely. This is the Lion Brand Comfy Cotton Blend. This is a polyester and cotton blend. Yeah, 50-50 cotton and polyester. This is the shade Flower Garden. And you can see in my finished thing. It's a real combo of loads of different colours, and you can see it in the ball as well. Reds, blues, purples, golds. There's a little bit of sort of tealy green. It's really, really nice. And then it's got this white running through it as well, which gives it an overall even more sort of mild effect. So yeah, really happy with the yarn. It's when you're knitting with it, it feels quite heavy and it feels quite dense, but for whatever reason, when you wear it, it doesn't feel like that. And I think this is really, particularly in somewhere like the UK where summers aren't that hot most of the time, we might have a few days of really hot weather. It's quite summer appropriate, so I'm really pleased with it. I've only been wearing it this morning, so I finished it on Friday. I've got my notes here of yardages and things. I finished it on Friday, it blocked over the weekend, and then this morning I wove my ends in and I've put it on today, and it's like wearing a store-bought top. I'm sort of forgetting that I'm wearing it. It fits really nicely. I should have had a little bit of negativities, but I haven't, and I think that's probably my gauge. But I haven't got much positivities. I'm probably fairly close to neutralies, maybe about an inch. Maybe an inch or two of positivities. And I'm quite happy with that. I think that looks quite nice. And it certainly feels quite nice. So I had 3 of these cakes in stash. This is just the ball band. Would you like a hat? No? There you go. Okay. You're very tolerant, aren't you? This is one of the ball bands. It's like I say, Lion Brand, Comfy Cotton Blend. It's one of those ball bands with a free pattern on the back of it. So these come in big 200 gram cakes. 200 grams gives you 358 meters, and I used 460 grams of this. This is 140 grams left. So that works out as 823 meters for the total thing. And actually, I've just realised it's a bit less than that because I've got a little bit left of... I'd originally started crocheting this into something and I wasn't happy with how it's turning out. And I've probably got about maybe 20 grams of yarn still in the crochet project that I haven't frogged back yet. So that means I'd have 480 grams. Sorry, I'd have used 440 grams and I'd have 160 left total, I think, something like that. So that's probably going to be more like 800 metres, maybe a bit less than that. So it's quite a yardage friendly. You okay there? Oh, okay. It's quite friendly on yardage, this, certainly. This is DK weight yarn. The gauge it gives is 4.5 millimetres. On 4.5 millimetre needles, 20 stitches and 20 rows per 10 inches. And I think that's pretty much exactly the gauge of the pattern. I really enjoyed working with this, and it's a really nice pattern to use up a DK weight yarn, whether you want to use a hand dyed or a summer yarn or whatever. So I am very pleased with this, but except for those little bits that I mentioned. So that's my first finished object. Let me pop on my second one. They're not going to go together, but I'm not really bothered. It's my podcast, I can do what I want. I should have done some sort of really smooth transition then, shouldn't I? But that would have required far too much forethought. So yeah, they don't go together at all. But oh well. I've finished my Roadtrip Shacket. This is now out, by the way. This is gorgeous. So this is the Roadtrip Shacket. This is a pattern by Maya Deglon, who is Maya Tinks on Instagram, on Ravelry, on YouTube. She has a YouTube as well. I'm going to touch on that. And this is out now. It was released over the weekend. Absolutely incredible pattern. I love this thing so much already, and I've only finished it about a week. Less than a week. So this is a drop shoulder construction. You start at the front here. Ignore the collar, we're going to talk about that. You start at the front here, you knit your 2 front panels. No, you start here and you knit your 2 front panels upwards, which are in this textured stitch, which is actually coming out really nicely on camera. You then put those on hold. You then come down a bit. You finish off at the top. You knit a little bit of stockinette to put your pocket stitches on hold because it has fully functional pockets on the fronts. And then you go and do your back panel. Again, you start at the bottom, you work up, you join at the top and you seam, and then you come back and you start working flat for the body downwards. So you start working up and then you work down. Yeah. You then, when you get to the bottom, let me see if I can show you. Oh God. She is beauty, she is grace. You have these wonderful curved hems, one of which is rolling a bit back. Because that's a shacket vibe, isn't it? That sort of shirt jacket curved hem. So you work these curved hems, and it's on the back as well. And there's also and then you've got this anti-roll bind off at the bottom, which gives it a really nice, like a store-bought look, I think, definitely. More so than ribbon would. And then you work your sleeves, you come back and you pick up at the top, you work all the way down, and then your cuffs. I love how these cuffs look. This is like a little I-cord, and you pick up from the I-cord and you just work a smaller gauge stockinette cuff. And again, I think that makes it look really store-bought and polished. It makes it not look like a homemade item. You then pick up and you work your button bands, your collar, and your pockets at the front with buttons. And there is not a single bit of this process that I haven't loved. I have loved every single stitch of this, and I'm super happy with the finished object. There is one thing that I'm not happy with, but I need to tweak, and that is the collar. Now, I think this is partly me and partly the pattern. So the anti-roll bind-offs do work really well generally, but for the collar, because you're picking it up and working it sort of, this is the wrong side here, and the idea is that it'll flop over so you see the right side, the stockinette side. And I think just for me on the collar, it's not quite anti-rolling as much as it should. So I've spoken to Maya about this. I know a couple of the other testers have had the same problem, and I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop a little stitch in at the front and a couple across the back to make it sit right, and that's the only thing. The fronts are rolling a little bit as well, but honestly, I kind of think that adds to the look. I don't think it takes away from it. I'm not going to wear this buttoned up because for me, I don't like the look of it on me buttoned up. I think this is because of the fabric that I've chosen, because this is Drops Nepal, which is a wool alpaca blend. It pulls a bit across the middle, and being someone who has grown up with a bigger bust, this is a common problem that I have with anything that buttons, and I don't like that look at all on me because of previous, just constantly as a kid, never being able to get to find like school shirts and stuff that didn't do that. So well, that was some really good button sewing. It's just dropped off. So that needs to go back on. Great. I can sort that. And actually, that's a perfectly good opportunity for me to show you the buttons I used. I've got these little tortoise shell. What is tortoise shell? Buttons that I got from John Lewis, which is a department store in the UK, and they had these ones. They are Millwood tortoise shell buttons. I got 2 packs because they came in. There were 6 pieces in a pack, and I needed 7. And these are just 20mm polyester buttons, it says, and they are this little tortoise shell pattern. And now I need to fasten one back on. Yeah, I'm super happy with this. This is pilling a little bit. I thought it would because of what the yarn is. So the yarn is Drops Nepal. I touched on that briefly already. Drops Nepal is an Aran weight wool alpaca blend. So 65% wool, 35% alpaca, and I fully expected, because of that alpaca content, that it was going to pill. I don't mind so much when I'm expecting it, and actually so far it's not that bad. I think with the glean it would be absolutely fine. I've worn this quite a lot already. I've had this on every day since I finished it. But yeah, just the colour is gorgeous. This is the shade Bordeaux, and I had 20, no I didn't have 20 balls in stash. Yeah, I think I did. I had 20 balls in stash, 75 metres a ball, and I have 4 balls left. So I've used pretty much bang on. There was a little bit left of the last ball, but I've just got rid of it because it was less than a few grams. I've used pretty much bang on 1,200 metres worth of yarn. I'm ever so slightly under the yardage estimates for the pattern, and I think that's just because my row gauge might have been a bit different. I have not added anything to the length. I think my sleeves were a bit shorter, weirdly, which is not normally what I need to do, but I finished the decreases and I didn't need to add anything more to the length to get it to hit where I wanted to. So I think, yeah, probably my row gauge has been a bit off. But I'm super happy with this. I knit size 4, which is the 50.34 inch finished bust. However, that is upper bust, so I still have got quite a lot of positive ease in this. It's still quite loose and oversized. There's a lot of extra there. I don't know if you can see, there is a lot of extra there on my side. I adore this. It is so good. It looks like a shacket that you would buy, and then it feels, whilst it's heavy, because Drops Alaska, Nepal, not Alaska, is a thick, heavy yarn, it's still beautiful. It doesn't feel super heavy when you've got it on. It doesn't feel super heavy when you've got it on. It just feels soft and warm. I've got 0 itch factor from this. It's, you know, up here, it's next to my skin, and it's on my wrists and things. 0 itch factor.
And I cannot recommend this pattern highly enough. I really can't. It's so fun. I want to make another one. I think my mum would love this. So if I haven't got enough of the right weight of yarn in my stash, but I think come towards Christmas, I might actually buy some to make one for her because I think she'd love it. I'm so happy with everything about this. So I knit mine on, I need to put the cost on screen of what Drops Alaska would cost you to make this, but it's Drops, I keep calling it Alaska, I'm sorry, Drops Nepal. It's quite a cost-effective yarn, so I don't think this would be a super expensive way to do it. And there is Drops Alaska if you don't want that alpaca content. This is why I keep getting confused, because there is Drops Alaska, and Drops Alaska is 100% wool. The only thing I would say with Drops Alaska, having used it before, is it can sometimes be a little bit dense. I think it is ever so slightly thicker. So I'm sure Drops Alaska gives you, for 50 grams, you get 70 metres, whereas this is 75 metres. So it would be ever so slightly thicker. But yeah, I think swatch with it, check that you're happy with it. And it's a really good budget-friendly option. Yeah, I need to put on screen the total cost. It won't be massive amounts. I haven't got anything here that I can check. I've got my work, I'm filming on my phone, which is what I'd normally use to check stuff like that. So I will pop it on screen. I made mine on the recommended needle sizes in the pattern, which were 5.5mm for the textured stitch, 5mm for the stockinette, and then 4.5 for the trimmings, the cuffs and things like that. Gauge swatch and just check that you're happy with it. But yeah, I'm super, super happy with this. I love it. It's so beautiful. And I wanted to touch on Maya as well. Sounds really strange. I'm just going to talk a bit more about Maya. So Maya is a relatively new designer. I think this is her 4th garment. Maya, please correct me if I'm wrong if you're watching, because I think you do sometimes watch. And you just wouldn't guess that this is her 4th design. First off, in the way it was written, it's quite a complicated pattern in quite a lot of places. There's a lot of things here. The textured stitch I'd never come across. I've never done a pocket like that. I've never done the anti-roll bind off. I've never done a non-ribbed cuff, things like that. I mean, that's fairly simple, isn't it? But binding off an I-cord and then picking up from an I-cord, I have done that before, but not for years. Adding buttonholes, you know, there's quite a lot of unusual stuff. And it is so well explained that this did not feel like a challenging pattern in the slightest. It felt easy, it felt fun. Everything's clear, everything's well explained, everything sort of holds your hand but doesn't treat you like an idiot. I know that's a weird way to put it, but we've all come across patterns, haven't we, before, that are really aimed at beginners. And if you're not a beginner, sometimes that feels a little bit patronising when you're reading a pattern, and then you knit by doing this and wrap your yarn. Like, we don't need that. Or you don't need that as a maybe we shouldn't be knitting beginner patterns. There's a thing there, isn't there, I guess, that if you don't want that, then don't knit patterns like that. But Maya, hold your hand without making it feel like you need your hand holding, if that makes any sense. And then just the fact that as a 4th design, she's taken on something really quite... This isn't the same as what you see on the market. This isn't just another standard stockinette raglan or a colourwork yoke or a textured sweater. This is completely different to anything I've ever seen. And it's extremely well executed. It looks like a store-bought item. If I was to get rid of this rolling and stuff, this would look like a store-bought item. And I would say that's the same with her other stuff. So she's got the Skeeter skirt was her first release was basically made to measure, I believe, a fit and flare skirt. Like, that's coming out with a bang, that. And I love that. And then she's got the Harmony jacket, which is really heavily traditionally cabled jacket, but she's then put things like zippers in it to make it more modern looking. She's got this, which is, again, it's stunning. And then she's got in fact, no, this might be her 3rd garment, because the melon sweater, which is the other one I'm thinking about, is currently in testing. And that's an all-over slip stitch texture with I-cords and, you know, different colours in the I-cords. What I'm trying to say is Maya doesn't shy away from doing things that might be difficult, and then she manages to execute them and explain them and write them into a pattern in such a clear way that you're able to match that and you're able to do that as well, even though they are completely different than anything you might have done before. I think she's absolutely a designer to keep an eye on. She's coming out with some fabulous stuff. This is absolutely no exception. And I'm really excited to see what else she comes out with, because it's so interesting. And the other thing I was going to say is she has a YouTube channel. I touched on it, and I really highly recommend that as well. I swear this isn't just a Maya Tinks fangirl episode, I promise, but I kind of am a little bit. One thing, the way that I would describe Maya's YouTube and her videos is just joyful. And that's the best way that I can explain it. I know if I watch one of Maya's videos, I'm going to laugh. I will be laughing out loud at my phone while I'm watching. She doesn't take anything too seriously, including herself. And I just, I really enjoy watching her. She's so fun to watch. And it does just feel like having a sitting down with a friend and talking about knitting. She also really intensively goes into things like talking about how she adjusts things to fit her. She is a relatively small person, but she has a broad back. So she talks about the adjustments she makes and the challenges that she has. She talks about her design process in terms of what does work, what doesn't work, and how she's going to fix it. She doesn't just show you a finished item and say, I did it. She shows you exactly what she did and how it was, how she got there and the challenges she was having. And I just find it so joyful to watch. She's so fun to watch. If you want to know that you're going to have some really interesting knitting to look at, and also you're going to laugh, Maya's, absolutely great for that. So I can't highly enough recommend. Really, really love Maya's content. Really love her designs. Really excited to see what else she comes out with. And also a joy to test for. The test in true form to how she comes across on Instagram and YouTube. Nothing was too serious. Everything was quite a joy, a laugh. There was no stupid questions at all. You weren't made to feel stupid. I've never had many experiences of that, but sometimes, you do feel like you're bothering the designer. Are you asking a stupid question? I never felt that at all with Maya. It was, she was really easygoing and laid back in the test. It was a really lovely experience. So, very highly recommend. And I'm going to keep this on, even though it doesn't really go because it's cold today. So I'm going to keep this on, and we're going to talk about some whips. So let me have a bit more of a drink. So before I go into the whips that I've got here, I'm going to mention a couple that I'm not going to show. So the PNR top that I showed last week, I have done a little bit more of that on, but there's not a massive amount to show on it. And the Stella quilt cushion is the same. I've done a little bit more. I finished that square I was on. I haven't done much more than that, so I'm not going to show those. The other one that I have been working away on and have made quite a bit of progress, but I haven't shown for a bit on here, is my Purley cardigan, which is a test knit for Leah Amber Knits. That is due at the end of March. Basically, the reason I haven't shown that is because that's been sitting next to my desk upstairs and has been my meeting knitting, especially now I've finished these two, because these are really good meeting knitting. But the reason I'm not showing it is because it's flat back and forth, loads of rows of stockinette in cream acrylic, and every time I'd show it on here, it would be like, I've got another inch of body. Oh, look, I've got another inch of, now we're at 3 inches of body. It's boring for you guys, so I'm not going to show that. I am currently, I think, about 8 inches into the body. So once these two that I'm going to talk about now are the priorities at the moment that are getting most of my time now. I've finished these, and once these are finished, that's going to be the next priority. So then it'll start coming back onto here. And there is another whip that I'm never going to show on here until it's finished and gifted, because I mentioned this briefly in my stash down episode with the big ball of green yarn. I showed on the stash down episode that I'd acquired 2 of those big 400 gram balls of a really dark green yarn. I'm making that as a gift for someone that I know watches the podcast. So I'm not showing that until it's done. I'm working on that in the background. You'll see it when it's done and gifted. Do I smell? Sorry. So it looks like I've only got 2 whips at the moment, and that's low for me. But I haven't. This is just what I'm showing on here. So first one to show is one that you've seen before. I'm just going to work a row on this because I've left this in a really awkward position. Why have you done this? I don't actually know. I might just slip it back. I'm just going to slip the needles because I need to get my pattern, which is on my phone, to be able to do it. So I'm just going to slip the stitches onto the other needle, and then we'll come back and do this, but I'll be able to actually show it to you. Okay, we're now in a place where I can show you. So this is my sample for Wild Pearl Yarns, who is lovely Lauren. And I've shown you this before. I was in this sort of section when I showed you before. This is the Ashleen Shawl by Justyna. I pronounced this wrong last week, and I think I keep saying Lorkowska, but it's not that. I think it's Lorkowska or something like that. I'll pop it on screen. She is on social media as Lete's Knits, Letes Knits. So this is a top-down shawl. You start with a little garter tab, and then you increase out from there. And it's got these, what she calls raindrop sections, which are eyelets and then garter ridges in between. And I think when I showed you last time, I was into my last raindrops section. And then at the bottom you have this really big, intense lace border, which is what I'm now working. Look at that. That's some beautiful lace work, isn't it? Not that I'm not taking credit for that. It's a beautiful lace pattern. So you've got this really lacy edge and then this quite intense cabling in the middle, cables and eyelets, that's going to block out absolutely beautifully. And you basically repeat this. Oh, I thought I'd lost a stitch then. You basically repeat this all along the bottom of the shawl. Let me just try and make sure I'm not pulling that off the stitches. So it's going to essentially look like that at the end. The shawl's going to come up here and you've got this big border at the bottom. This I cannot work without looking. I cannot memorise the repeat because it's only like 13 rows, but it's quite intense. You're obviously working this lacy border. That I pretty much have got memorised. But I don't think I'm going to memorise this bit in the middle because every single row is different in that 13 row repeat. And there's all sorts of different cables and crosses and stuff like that. But it is really satisfying to knit. I'm really enjoying cables at the moment, so it's really satisfying to knit. Lauren's asked for this back by the end of March. I'm hoping to get it done a bit sooner than that. It doesn't actually take me super long to work. I have to pay attention to it, so it means that I'm limited in like, this can't be meter knitting or anything like that. This has to be paying attention knitting. You can see there all the rest of the shawl that I've got to go to put this on. I think I need to do like 18 total repeats, and this is the vast majority of 2. So I've got like 16 and a bit more to do. But it's really fun to knit and it's going to look beautiful when it's done. I think it's just going to look absolutely stunning with that big border on the bottom. Looks really mental now, but will look really good. This is both in Lauren's sock yarn, which is an 85-15. Yeah, 85-15 merino, superwash merino nylon base. And these colours are going to be coming in her next shop update, which is at the end of the month. And they're beautiful. The colours are beautiful. The yarn is gorgeous. I love this 85-25 blend. And I would very highly recommend you go and check her shop out. As always, she's a lovely person with some absolutely gorgeous colours. She's on Etsy. I think she currently only ships in the UK because of the GPSR regulations or whatever it was, but I could be completely wrong. And if I am wrong, I'll pop that on screen. But I would very highly recommend you go and check her out. The next one is another test knit. I've not shown this at all on here and I've been loving this so much. So this is a really good point to show you, I'm hoping, because of where I'm at with it. So this is going to be the coffee cream vest, which is a pattern that's going to be coming out shortly by Stitches by Mary, which is Maria Tonero. You may have seen me testing last year. I was testing the Wonderland tee by her. And I don't think I actually ever showed that as a finished object because I didn't quite fully finish it. So I got really close within the time of the test. I was running really close to the length. And basically what I realised when I was working away trying to finish it off, I handed in what I could with the test. And I was trying to finish it to take finished object photos. And I realised 2 things. Number 1, I was a bit short on yarn. I knew I was going to be a bit short on yarn. That's fine. But number 2, as I've referenced in other videos, between having started that test knit, because it was quite a long test knit because it was a fingering weight summer tee, and having finished it, I had lost enough weight that this was now a massive top on me. I still really want to make that top in that yarn, but I think I've ripped it out, and I think what I'm going to do is, now I've lost enough weight to make probably a couple of sizes smaller at least, if not, I think I was making size G in that, and I'm making size E in this, so that's 2 sizes smaller, which would mean that I can get a lot more length with the yarn that I've got. So I'm really planning to, with the yarn and planning to redo that in the same thing. But yeah, you never saw it as a finished object. This is absolutely going to be a finished object. So this is a top down. Let me show you the back panel because you can see the cable's a bit better. Come here. It's all right. I don't know if anyone can shed any light on this. This is some really weird behaviour we have. Last January, not this one just gone, in 2024, my other half and I both had the flu. And we both had really bad coughs. And Pepper did not like it. Pepper hated when we were coughing. He would stand and stare at us, tail down. Sorry. He would stand and stare at us, tail down, looking really upset, really dejected. And since we've got better, he's fine with my husband now, but he hates when I cough. And this is what happens. If I cough, he comes up to see afterwards. It's almost like he's checking to see if I'm okay. He's always been quite sensitive to loud noises, so I don't know if it's just that. I remember taking him into Nottingham as a puppy and there was a busker and he hated it. But This is, I don't know if this is checking that I'm okay or just wanting soothing. I think it's probably just wanting soothing, isn't it? You don't like it. I can't help it, mate. I've got a cough sometimes. I'm sorry. You're a good boy. You going to stay there then while I talk about this? It's okay. Oh, your breath stinks though. Yeah, so I don't know if anybody can shed any light on that or show how we can... Tail's back up now. He's all right now. Just show... I feel horrible that I frighten him when I cough. I will have cut out the cough, but that's what's caused this. I coughed. I don't like it, do you? What I was saying... Oh, you've had enough now, I see. Was this is going to be a cabled slipover. I've never worn or made a slipover, but I kept thinking I wanted to try one, and this just, I really liked this. I thought this was really cute. So you knit this as a drop shoulder, you knit your back panel, you come back and you pick up your left front, which is what I've done. And then I'm going to do the right front next, and then you join and you work down the body, and then it's got some ribbon to put on as well. I think it's folded ribbon. I've got dog hair in my mouth now. What I liked about this is that it's quite simple cables. It's not really OTT and in your face. You've just got really simple twists that go different ways on different sides of it. And then in the middle you've got ribbon. And this looks tiny, but let me just show you the stretch. I'm not going to stretch it that far when I wear it, but it's got lots of stretch in it. It'll block out really nicely. And this is really light and airy. I'm really pleased with the yarn choice I've made. So this was intended for a sport to DK weight yarn. I think the pattern suggested 4mm needles, but it was something like 24 stitches, the gauge. So I instantly knew that wasn't happening on 4mm needles for my gauge. So I swatched on 3.5 and I got gauge on that. And that's what I'm working on. And yeah, this has just been so satisfying. I love the colour. I think this is going to be really wearable for me. This is, where's my ball band? Because I always forget the information. This is a discontinued yarn as well. I'm sorry, but there is a really similar equivalent on the market at the moment that I'm going to talk about. So this is the yarn. You can see more in the actual garment that it's not a solid grey. This is almost like a blown yarn, but it's not quite. Sorry about that. What was I saying? Yeah, so this yarn is another discontinued yarn, but there is a very similar yarn on the market currently. And I've lost the ball band. I've completely lost it. Oh, it's there on the floor. Right. So what I'm using is from a D-stash last year. And it's this. It's Peter Pan Petite Fleur DK. This isn't the colour. So this is from another one of the... Oh, no, this is the colour. This is Lamb's Ear. Is the shade. They're all named after flowers. So I've got a blue that's called Forget Me Not. This is Lamb's Ear. And it's a lovely grey with like a lighter core. You can sort of see there. It's got a very definite... That is a dog hair. But the rest of this is Halo. And it's very light yarn. I think it is a blown yarn. I think it's a blown yarn. I'm not 100% sure on that. And it's very, very light. This is technically, it calls itself a DK, like I say, Petite Fleur DK. But I would say this is more a sport weight. So this came in 50 gram balls, and 50 grams gave you 175 meters. So what's that? Over 300 meters per 350 meters per 100 grams. There's quite a lot of yardage per 100 grams for a DK weight. And this pattern was recommended for sport to DK. And again, 3.5mm needles, I thought this would work well. So I tried it and I got gauged perfectly. And because it's that sort of blown light yarn, this is really, really light. This is only just over 50 grams worth of yarn. I'm into the second ball, but I joined the second ball. Let's see if I can find it. I joined the second ball here. So I've only done probably, maybe 10 grams of yarn there? No, less than that actually. And the majority of the first ball did the majority of this, so it's extremely light and very airy. I don't know if you can see there, you can't tell, but you can almost see through it. It's not see-through, but it is quite, yeah, airy is definitely the way to put it. And this is a 44% cotton, 28% tencel and 28% acrylic blend. It is extremely similar to James C. Brett's yarn. which is available on the market in the UK and I think probably overseas in some places as well. That is very definitely more of a plied yarn, whereas this does feel a bit more like a blown yarn. But it has that same sort of, you can see there a lot of halo around it, and it has that same sort of feel, same sort of, technically a DK, but actually probably more like a sport, and would give you that same kind of light, fluffy, drapey feel. I think they're very, very easily interchangeable. I've got some of that in stash, and I'm planning on using that up this year. But yeah, this is really, really fun. I'm really enjoying this. I'm really liking because it's quite simple cables. It's quite fun to knit. I wouldn't say it's a beginner pattern. It's beginner cables. So if you're an intermediate knitter, and you are used to reading, so it's all charted. In fact, it's mostly charted. And then when you get to places like here, you're keeping track of multiple different things at the same time. So you're increasing for your underarm at one rate, you're increasing for your front at another rate, you're keeping track of when you're doing your cables as well, and your overall row count. So you're keeping track of quite a lot of things. So I wouldn't say it's for a beginner knitter, but if you're a more intermediate knitter who hasn't done cables and would like to try them, this is really good for that, because it's not really complex cables. Like I say, it's just these nice simple twists, and it looks really, really effective. This is basically like a week's worth of knitting. I'd cast on and I'd done, I think, probably to about there on the back. I hadn't done much. I think probably in February sometime. And then once I'd finished this, I really started working on this. So that is basically like a week's worth of work. And also I have knit this front panel twice. So I got almost to the bottom. I was probably somewhere around here. And I realised that my numbers didn't add up. And after speaking to Maria in the test knit chat, we realised that I'd messed up. Not the pattern, I'd messed up back up here. So I ripped right back up to the pickup and did it again. So I've knit this entire front twice, and then I finished this again yesterday, and I'm about to start my right front, which should probably only take me a day or two as well. I'm really excited to try a slip over. Like I say, I've never worn one. I think I will probably get quite a lot of wear out of it once I work out how to style it, but I think with like a black long sleeve top with a white shirt, things like that, I think it'll look really nice. Because this is a nice lightweight yarn, it's not going to feel really chunky and heavy and overbearing and sort of stiff on top of everything else that I'm doing. I'm loving this yarn. This is another one that I'm quite sad is discontinued, because it's very nice. The one thing I will say about it, and I think is the same, is that there is zero elasticity in this. This is solid. So when it comes to doing the cables, it is a little bit hard on my hands because there is no give. But overall, because it's a stretchy pattern, because it's ribbed and cabled, despite the yarn not having stretch, the pattern does have stretch, and you can see there as well. It stretches out nicely and it blocks out nicely, and I think I'm going to get a lot of wear from this. So very, very pleased with this. And that's the last thing that I needed to tell you about. These are the two things, like I say, at the moment, these are the two that are getting the most work. So I'm hoping in the next time I speak to you, these two will be done or close to. And then the Purly cardigan's going to come out and properly get loads and loads of work on it. And then I've got a load of new things that I want to be casting on that are also test knits that are due in April and May. So lots of new things coming, and hopefully some new finished objects as well. So that's everything, like I say, that I wanted to talk to you about. And yeah, I'm really enjoying it at the moment. I'm really enjoying having a few things to work on, and just focusing on them and not trying to flit around between other things. I mentioned in my stash down as well that I've just got an e-spinner, which arrived on Friday. I'm super excited. I plugged it in, made sure it works. I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing with it. But I've got some fibre. One of my friends has given me some fibre that's coming, I think, today, hopefully, all being well. Or they're saying that it should have come by now if it was going to, so maybe tomorrow. So I'm going to have a play with that, and then I'm going to East Anglia Yarn Festival at the weekend. If you see me, please say hello. Don't be startled if I look a little bit deer in the headlights when you say hello, because I'm just so not used to being recognised. But if you do, please feel free to say hi. And I'm hoping to pick up some more fibre there as well. And hopefully not pick up much yarn, because that defeats the object of a stash down, doesn't it? So yeah, that's what's coming up. I'm very excited for it. And then we've got a week off work next week as well. So I'm excited for that, to get lots and lots of knitting done. We're not doing anything, we're just having a week at home. So I'm hoping I will get a lot done. But that was everything I wanted to touch on with you today. Thank you very much, as always, for watching. I'm hoping this week, I am finding as my job changes, I am finding it harder and harder to find time to film.
even on the weekends. I kind of am becoming a little bit more protective of my weekends because I'm knackered from the week. So I am trying to find time where and when I can to film. And the stash tour I know is going to be a big one. So I'm really hoping that if I can't film that this week, then next week when I'm off work, I should be able to have time. And that will be coming. But thank you for your patience while I try and work out this new sort of life setup and time, you know, how that works with filming. I appreciate each of you coming back when I'm not particularly good at sticking to a schedule at the moment. And as always, I really appreciate you spending your time with me. Have a great week, evening, afternoon, day, whatever it is, wherever you are. And I'll see you on the next one. Bye, guys.